And it is a somewhat cloudy, stormy, overcast weekend in the Chicago region. It seems like all of the Midwest is wet and going through the rites of spring. I guess in certain parts of Kansas, they've got blizzard conditions. In Missouri, they've got epic flooding. And I don't know about the West Coast, but I think the East Coast has got a little bit of an edge to it also. But nonetheless, it is time for us to take a look at the next section of A Course in Miracles. And we had stopped with the introduction to the manual for teachers. So now we're going to find out who are God's teachers. So how are you this morning, Stephen? Are you ready to have that revealed?
Yeah, I'm ready to jump in. I love the manual for teachers. It's very applicable, and hopefully you'll find it useful in your life too.
And you guys out there, you're having benign weather. The Santa Anas aren't making everybody crazy.
No, it's really gorgeous out right now. It gets a little bit colder in the night, of course, because we're on the mountain. But overall, we've been blessed with some really beautiful weather, even with the windiness that comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it is fascinating how all of us inhabiting this little ball of mud floating through space have managed to create different environmental conditions so that we can all experience them simultaneously. And that's kind of, once again, emphasizing what the Course is always telling us, which is none of this is real. You know, the guy down the road from you's in a blizzard and you're having 77 degrees and blue skies, and God would never have created that much chaos for his child. And so we really are, once again, reawakened to the idea that this is not something that is placed in our lap. This is something that we have sought out and created for whatever purpose was driving us in the moment.
Yeah, and God would also never force us to give up that dream of what we're living either. We have to give it up through our own will. We have to give it up by realigning with God's will.
Exactly. Yeah. After you've been turned into a pound of hamburger multiple times, then it's like, well, maybe that's not working for me. Right. So we're getting closer to being able to figure out, what our mission here really is. We've always got these different ideas about I'm here to do this or to do that. And of course, that's a big part of the hero's journey, and we're always the hero of our dream. But there is a different purpose and a different function for us. And so you want to start off this with this first paragraph?
Yeah, I love that. So who are God's teachers? A teacher of God is anyone who chooses to be one. His qualifications consist solely in this. Somehow, somewhere, he has made a deliberate choice in which he did not see his interests as apart from someone else's. Once he has done that, his road is established and his direction is sure. A light has entered the darkness. It may be a single light, but that is enough. He has entered an agreement with God, even if he does not yet believe in him. He has become a bringer of salvation. He has become a teacher of God.
That's a pretty powerful idea, in that recognition of the fact that your singular needs are not really of any real importance or true interest. So when you occasionally slip into that space of recognizing that the needs of those around you are as important, if not more important than your own, causes the beginning of an awakening. And, that's not even confined to this timeline. This could have been an occasion that happened five incarnations back. But now you're stepping into that recognition of a better way and a more useful purpose in the pursuit of life in this material realm. So this is basically telling us that all of us are teachers of God. And some of us have awakened to that understanding, but it's always been there.
Yeah, I love how it says in that section alone that the teacher of God has made a deliberate choice to see someone else's needs as not apart from their own, and that's that core principle, I think, of you're starting when you make that choice deliberately to see someone else's needs as just as important as yours. Is like, I need to fulfill your needs, I need to help you, I need to care for you. There's a feeling of extending love there, and that's truly fulfilling.
It absolutely is. It's the reward that we've all been seeking, but we've ended up running around buying cars and, doing all these things that fall into the category of self-aggrandizement, when in truth, that humbling of the ego is what gives us permission to step into an understanding of what our real needs actually are. So it becomes quite interesting when we make that one tiny step, the immense impact it ultimately has.
Absolutely.
So the next paragraph here, it says, they come from all over the world. They come from all religions and from no religion. They are the ones who have answered. The call is universal. It goes on all the time, everywhere. It calls for teachers to speak for it and redeem the world. Many hear it, but few will answer. Yet it is all a matter of time. Everyone will answer in the end, but the end can be a long, long way off. It is because of this that the plan of the teachers was established. Their function is to save time. Each one begins as a single light, but with the call at its center, it is a light that cannot be limited. And each one saves 1,000 years of time as the world judges it. To the call itself, time has no meaning. And boy, is that ever a fact. We get so trapped in that idea of, I'm running out of time, I'm running against time, time is slipping through my fingers. And again, that's kind of a ploy to draw us back into supporting the needs of our ego and to being immune to the needs of those around us. So, and needs doesn't have to show up as going out and feeding the poor in India like Mother Teresa did, but the simple act of forgiveness and acceptance and extending love is really the only action that we have to take in this process. So it's so simple and yet so imperative that we start to recognize that we are the teachers of God.
Yeah, and we'll get to the attributes of the teachers of God later, but the one that is the last attribute is open-mindedness. And I really enjoy that idea of always staying open-minded to how you can share love with someone. Maybe someone's only open to receiving it in one way, like yesterday, Clea had asked me to make a grilled cheese for her, a grilled cheese sandwich. And so I went and did that. And, and that was just like an act of love. Like, I just wanted to give that to her. And sometimes, it requires to be open-minded to what other people need.
Yeah, absolutely. It can show up in a very simple format. But nonetheless, it is being proactive. That's the real point that we are examining here. It's not being, above the activities of this material world. We do have to be engaged, but to what degree? That's where we have to trust that the Holy Spirit will give us the right direction. If we try to fix other people's needs on our own, we start to derail the entire process. So we do have to arrive at a point where we're willing to step back and say, okay, what do you want me to do? It's not what I want to do. It's what, the vision of the Father is all about. So it is forcing us to be grown-ups in a world of infants that are hurting each other.
Yeah, the sharp-edged children's toys, and I think you beautifully articulated that idea of, that you come into the idea of listening. Listen to what other people are needing. Listen to what they're asking for, and when they ask for specific things, and give them that specific thing.
Yes, especially if it's no more involved than slapping some bread and cheese together and grilling it.
Well, I did have to put in the oven to avoid burning it, so there can be things that come up, but because we don't have a microwave here, so.
Well, I never used a microwave for grilled cheese. I used the good old frying pan and stovetop.
Yeah, I used that first, but it got a little bit burnt, but she still liked it, so.
Yeah.
So the next paragraph says there is a course for every teacher of God. The form of the course varies greatly. So do the particular teaching aids involved. But the content of the course never changes. Its central theme is always God's Son is guiltless, and in his innocence is his salvation. It can be taught by actions or thoughts, in words or soundlessly, in any language or in no language, in any place or time or manner. It does not matter who the teacher was before he heard the call. He has become a savior by his answering. He has seen someone else as himself. He has therefore found his own salvation and the salvation of the world. In his rebirth is the world reborn. I think that's a really touching passage, just to consider, the idea of that you become a teacher of God and a savior of the world by seeing someone as yourself. That's really profound.
That's true. And one of the things that occasionally pops up through the news services is somebody, who confronts someone who raped them or ran over them or shot them in the head or whatever, 10 or 15 or 20 years later, and they're able to embrace that person and have gone through the process in their own personal way of being able to completely forgive somebody who, by the standards of this world, has done grievous damage to them. So we see these sparks that come out all over the place, where people are talking about the act of forgiveness and how it felt right and how it felt natural and how it made them whole again. And at the same time, it released the person who had accosted them, and it gave that person permission to continue to live. And I think that's really what it boils down to, is every time we condemn, we think it's, I think we should just lock this guy up for 20 years. But really underneath that, if you go and look at it in a little bit deeper level, any kind of a condemnation, any kind of a desire to get justice, really at the bottom of the pit, it in that darkest place resides that desire to kill the other person. So we have to really start looking at how we're reacting to the circumstances around us. And we have to take these messages that come across that are so counter to the normal process of humanity and embrace those ideas and share those ideas so that we're no longer even subtly trying to murder those around us for the sake of what we believe they did to us.
Yeah, I mean, that starts to get where it's like a really profound idea too, because I was just looking at someone's posts about the Course and remembering a lot of lines in the Course that say, the ego really only ever attacks itself, because our innocence really can't be attacked. God can't be attacked because we'd be unaware of it. It would just be so outside of that awareness of innocence. So the ego can really only ever try to attack itself. And I think that's something to kind of just like meditate and carry with you, I think, a bit.
Exactly.
You're identified with the ego, then you're going to feel the attack is real. But if you're not identified with it, it would just pass right on through.
Right. And actually, you can see the humor underneath it because, having that truth registered in your consciousness that you are invulnerable, that you cannot be in any way harmed or damaged. Now, granted, your body can be broken and ultimately have to be discarded, but the truth is who you are was never harmed. And the more you can embrace even the glimmering of that kind of an idea, the faster you can advance and transcend all of the different nasty, crazy things that the ego brings up into the conscious mind.
Yeah, I love how even Jesus says that, like, even when you come into that proper identification of who you are as a mind, you realize that even the body cannot be destroyed for the time that you'll use it as a teacher of God, and you'll lay it quietly aside or gently aside. And it's not going to be, you don't have to have like this horrendous, brutal bodily experience, when it comes to your bodily death.
Yeah, Jesus did that journey with the cross, but he makes it very clear, in actually on multiple occasions throughout the Course, that is not required of us. He did that to show the universe, to show the collective humans that he was surrounded by, that the body itself is not the content of who the individual is. So we don't have to worry about a grisly outcome simply because God doesn't demand that of us.
Yeah, I suppose in a way you could say the what we look at as the crucifixion was really a climactic demonstration of ultimate freedom, that Christ was in that state.
Yeah, he was completely detached from his physical body, absolutely. Well, finishing up the section here, the last paragraph says, "This is a manual for special curriculum intended for teachers of a special form of the universal course. There are many thousands of other forms, all with the same outcome. They merely save time. Yet it is time alone that winds on warily, and the world is very tired now. It is old and worn and without hope. There is never a question of outcome or what can change the will of God. But time, with its illusions of change and death, wears out the world and all things in it. Yet time has an ending, and it is this that the teachers of God are appointed to bring about, for time is in their hands. Such was their choice, and it is given." So basically, we are the ones who are condensing all of this. And in that journey, resolving the illusion on the behalf of God. So really, at the core of everything, the central theme here is the idea of time. And as soon as we resolve that skewed kind of perceptional understanding of the world we inhabit, then things do get altered. And I think just in the 70 years I've been around, I have noticed those little kind of shifts in the sense of time. And I think that the work that Helen and Bill Thetford did as the genesis of the course started to immediately affect the whole process of time itself. And now we know that our function is included in that.
Yeah, it all starts to kind of blend together after, refining the course. And notice that, there's time doesn't really move linearly. We just kind of impose that on time. It's really not here at all. It's really not time. We have all of eternity, I guess you could say, to get it right, to come back to atonement. So you can always take your time.
Yeah, we're not rushed, but we certainly can see the effects of our work,
Right.
And I have a little story. When I was living in Wisconsin, my kid Eric and I were, in ongoing communication. And about every 3 or 4 months, he would come up with the family, and they would hang out. But I was going through a very difficult passage with my own physical journey. And I remember getting up out of the chair and walking halfway across the room. And suddenly I kind of slipped into this bizarre passage where it was like, okay, 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps, start to fall. I feel myself turning and falling and landing on the floor. And in the midst of this process, okay, now I just wait here for about 2 hours, maybe 3 for Eric, and he'll come up. Well, there was no communication. There was, no indicator. Nobody called him. But about 3 hours later, Eric came up, and he showed up, and, it's an hour and a half drive. So it, to me, number one, it put a big emphasis on the idea that this is a memory. All of this crap that we're dealing with is a memory, because I very clearly, in that process, remembered all of the steps and, my position after I had passed out, and what was going to happen as an after effect. And so it was very interesting because it quelled fear, because normally when you're having experiences of that sort, it can be terrifying. But for me, it was very liberating, because it proved to me that everything I was reading in the course was spot on. And so, you have those deja vu experiences in life. And this one was an extreme deja vu experience, deja vu on steroids. But nonetheless, I think everybody has that recall of some very momentary passage in their existence when they had been through the whole process, and they realized they were reviewing it, they were remembering it, because they kind of popped out of that space of being embedded in it, and was able to see it from that higher perspective as just simply an old memory that needs to be addressed and released.
Yeah, that's a really cool story. Thanks for sharing that. That's like kind of like so you're saying the idea of knowing it was a memory and knowing it's not real helped you to liberate your mind from the idea that you needed to take it seriously or be afraid of it, and then you just felt at peace with it.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, I already knew the outcome. I was 100% in expectation of Eric's driving up in the driveway, and it was a weekday, and he was doing his thing, working for Amtrak, and just all of a sudden that impulse came up, and he knew he had to drive up to Wisconsin. There was something wrong. And it's quite fascinating how complete our lives really are if we can step back and get a higher perspective and see where our lives are taking us, because all of these are lessons that can cause us to awaken.
Here comes the cat to chime in to that. But yeah, absolutely. And it's like, if you can use everything in your life just like you did with that example, and see it as this is an old memory, a distant past, and it's just here to show me how to change my viewpoint of it, change my perception, and see it through eyes of peace. It's like you know, what is the world but a place, just a place to rest, as a line from the Course, or a place to rest for a while.
Yes, yeah, we don't have to be in panic mode, and we certainly don't have to fix anything. All we have to do is be steadfast and forgive, forgive, forgive.
Absolutely. So you want to pick up with the next section next week?
Yes, we'll be looking at section 2, which we resolved who are the teachers. Now we get to find out who are the pupils. And this has got some interesting thoughts embedded in it also. So in 7 days, we'll expand our comprehension of our role and the role of others in the world we're surrounded by.
Wonderful. So we're coming into great practical viewpoint of how to use the Course now. So that's good.
Absolutely. Well, Stephen,
Okay.
Have a fun week there running up and down the mountainside, and go feed the damn cat. The cat's meowing, saying, "I am hungry."
I just fed her. Her bowl is filled to the rim. She's just coming to say hi. She wants some attention.
That's good. Make sure the kitty cat is happy, and the rest of the world will be following along that trajectory.
Absolutely. Okay, Chris, thanks again for meeting, and we'll see you next week then.
Sounds perfect. Bye.
Okay, bye.